YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Now today I've got a few things to show you. We've got a bunch of new images from the Ingenuity helicopter on Mars, and I've got a few other things to show you as well, but I've got a whole bunch of gigapans to get through here, and I'm hoping my computer will cope with it. I did have a Miley Cyrus on this computer, or something that rhymes with it, beginning with V, right? When I was working on previous video, about a week ago, about the Chinese mission on Mars, and I was on their website, and as I was making the video I was showing their website and downloading their images and stuff, I got a Miley Cyrus on my computer, and I've been scanning the bejesus out of it since then, and now it seems to be okay, but it's not been operating very well, and kept crashing like 5, 6, 7 times a day. But now it seems to be okay, so I'm hoping it's going to hold for this video. So let's crack on with it. Now, those of you that are not new to my channel would have seen some of this stuff already in this video here. Mars Perseverance update. NASA is scanning structures. Okay, this one here, the one with the sort of very orangey looking cover. Now, I'm going to be showing you some of this again today, but I'm not going to go through it in great detail because I have covered a lot of this, but I'm just going to point out some of the things because I've basically got a whole bunch of gigapans that I've just uploaded last night and this morning, and I'm going to show you those now. There's this one here. Now this is a single image from the Ingenuity helicopter. This is an image of Jezero crater looking west towards the ridge and the edge of the crater in the background. This is the edge of the crater. Here's that bunker-shaped structure that I've shown many times already. We're seeing it from quite a distance here, and this looks like the copter drone is a long way up, but it's only 33 feet up. So it's very hard to work out scale when you're looking at these things, because some of these things are quite a long way off. This is about a mile away, this thing here. But you can see all these things in the ground. There's nothing actually much to see in this particular image. I just thought it was a cool image. This has been brightened up a bit because it's quite dark. But you can link to, as always, if you want to link to the original images, you can get them by clicking on these links here, where it says Caltech. There's a little link thing there, and that will take you to the original image. The original image of this is a bit dark, so I brightened it up so we can see more, but there isn't a huge amount of detail here. But this was quite a large image. I think that the camera on this Ingenuity is something like 13 megapixels or something like that. So the images are quite large, and they're not bad. And I'm going to show you some more here. I've got this one here. Now this is 2 images, like that one I just showed you. They're quite large, and I stitched them together. And this is the sort of colour they are normally, and this is real colour apparently, unlike some of the other images we see, which are either in black and white or in false colour or whatever, or have weird orange and yellowy filters on them, like the ones we see from on the ground, where everything looks kind of yellowy, right? This is actual colour. Now, this is basically what I covered in that previous video, NASA scanning structures on Mars. And you can actually see, without doing anything to this, you can actually see the structures in the ground. Here, there's one here. Long rectangular structure here. There's a circular part to it here. There's another circular part here, which kind of looks hexagonal actually, just here. But they don't show as well on here. So what I've done different versions of this pan. I've got one which is enhanced with loads of contrast added, so you can really see not only the tracks where the rover has been driving over these things and scanning them with the GPR, ground penetrating radar, but you can really see the shapes in the ground and formations of ruins. Now, when you get ruin structures, of course, they dilapidate, they fall down, and this is all filled in with sand. You can actually see where sand's drifted up here. We got this long dune here formed on the edge of this set of structures, right? And there's dunes over here as well. But you can really see these rectangular and circular structures in the ground. This one here, like I said, looks kind of hexagonal here, right? But that may just be a dilapidated circular structure that just looks hexagonal from this angle. But we basically got long structures in the ground, and you can see here there's long walls going along here, right? These are walls of ruins. Actual ruined buildings in the ground. And I've also done a negative one here where you can really see them, because this I think is better because it doesn't show the tracks as much, but it really shows the dark stone, quarried and shaped stone, which is now all dilapidated. Now, I'm not saying that a lot of this stuff was amazingly cut stone. I think a lot of the rock they used was locally quarried and fairly roughly cut and just piled up into walls and using mortar and stuff like that. I have shown in Gale Crater there was lots of concrete with rebar in it and wire mesh going through it, or metal mesh going through it to reinforce it. This is a different type of construction, a bit more primitive and probably much older, I would say. And these look like stone walls which may have had mortar holding them together as well. But I can't prove that yet because we haven't gone down deep enough into this to actually see the mortar sticking it together. And I haven't seen much of it in this area. So I'm thinking a lot of this was dry stone construction. In other words, roughly hewn rock, which is then piled up in walls, making structures, small houses and rooms, and perhaps larger buildings as well, okay? So quite primitive construction, I think this was. You can actually see there's one here, rectangular one here. Got a long line coming right across here, and then another one here. Got a long sort of structure here, which looks like a room or a part of a building there. Like I said, there's that hexagonal or circular one there, and another one there. And in the distance, you can see other formations. Like over here, if you look carefully, there's a rectangular formation here with a long wall coming along here. You can see this wall here. So these will appear as intermittent kind of rocks, but they're all in formations. And these formations are not natural. Okay, and you can see some of it better in this one. Over here, you can see over here there's these groups of what just look like random rocks, but they're not. A lot of these are actually ruined structures in the ground, buried. Okay, so you can check all these out. I'll have links to all these, as usual, with all my videos. I always link to the stuff I'm showing below, so you can check it out yourself. And you can, like I said, if you want to download the original images, this will take you to it here, and everything else. So there we are. I mean, I'm not going to spend ages showing this because I've already covered a lot of this stuff, but you can really see these shapes in the ground. And when you flick between these, if you go between the enhanced contrast one, the raw one here, and then the negative one, you can really work out what you're looking at. And you can see where they've driven around this whole set of structures here, which shows up better in this one. You can see the tracks coming round. They've actually deliberately driven right across the centre of these structures. And I think, as I said before in that previous video, they're using the ground penetrating radar to scan what's underground and work out a map, an underground map of what's actually here. Because these GPR systems will scan down to about 30 feet down below the surface, okay, which is quite a long way. Deep enough to find underground caverns and structures that are buried. Even if they're multiple levels, they could be 2 or 3 or even 4 levels deep. We don't know. I suspect they're at least 2 levels deep, but they could be much deeper. So there we are. So I won't go on and on about that because I have covered a lot of this stuff before, but basically you can see these structures in the ground quite clearly, and a lot of them are rectangular. But what you've got to try and do is ignore these tracks in a way because they kind of obscure your vision slightly. But you can see these formations, and I've shown them from the rover pictures on the ground as well in previous videos as well. And I'm sure we'll get to see a lot more of these in coming images as the Ingenuity flies around more and takes more pictures. It takes quite large pictures, but it doesn't take very many, okay? So that was cool. So moving on, I've also got these 2 pans here, which I've just uploaded. Now these are old pans, or I should say these are older images from the Curiosity rover taken years ago. And I dug this up yesterday. This thing here has been sitting on my desktop for about a year now. And what we have is an alien skull here. And this was found about a year ago in May last year, 2020. And I completely forgot about this set of images here and this Gigapan. And it's been waiting to go up on the Gigapan site in all my folders. I've got about 2,000 Gigapans that I've done so far. And I've only uploaded probably about 200 or 300. So it's a lot of work to do, but I'm gradually getting through them. And this is a typical example of another alien skull on Mars. Not that typical, I should say. You can actually see this, we've got a very elongated shape here. We've got an eye here, we've got a nose here, and we've got very jagged teeth, sort of broken up teeth here and mouth. And this is the chin here at the bottom. There seems to be a rock or something just behind it there, which you can see the edge of there, it seems, right? And the head comes right up in a long elongated shape, which is partially obscured by this strange looking coral looking rock here, okay? I'll show you that in greater detail in a minute. There's also this Gigapan, so that's Sol 1097. Link will be below for this. There's lots of other things in this set of images. We've got two mini pans here. They're not huge. And there's lots of weird stuff in here. Fragments and what look like little statuettes and things like that as well, in amongst all this debris and rock, okay? But there's that skull, which isn't that big. There it is, just see it there. And it's kind of perched on this ledge or sort of little ridge here with a sort of rock or something there, which may be coral or something, just here. You can see it. And you can even see the eye in the raw image. If you use the magnifier, you can see it pretty well just there. It's got a bluish tint to it, just there, and it's kind of round, just there. You can see the nose there. Let's use the magnifier again. There's the nose. And I've got it up in here. I'll show you this up close and point out the features to you. There's the nose, kind of pointing down, hooked nose. There's the eye. There is some eye detail in there, eyebrows, mouth with very jagged teeth detail there, okay, chin and jaw coming up, joining onto this. I think this is an ear, just here. There's some ear detail going on there, right? And the skull itself is very pitted and comes like that, and it's kind of all pitted and interestingly textured, I would say. And if we go back to the Gigapan, I've got that clip that I've just showed you in the Gigapan, so you can look at it more closely. And you can zoom right into this. You can see that eye, just there. There's the nose. There's those teeth. If you look carefully, you can see there's two legs here. You zoom in a bit. There's a leg with a paw on the end there, and another one here. There's a head coming up here. There's an ear sticking out there, and this comes round. This is the body, comes down like that. There's the belly, back, foot, and leg there. There's a mouth there, and there's an eye, and there's ear detail in the ear there, okay, like that. And the other eye is sort of over there, right? And there's sort of nose detail or something going on here. So some kind of little animal, and I think that's an ear on the edge of it there as well. A bit like a cat, it may not be a cat. And it kind of looks like there's a tail, I'm not really sure. But this wasn't very clear. I think this is one of the reasons I didn't bother showing this, is because I couldn't really get the image clear enough. But it seems to be what is shaped like, something shaped like a small cat or similar type of thing, okay? That's what it looks like to me. And you can see that mouth there, and the eye, and there is ear detail sticking up like that, and another ear at the back, and this comes round. There's the body, and like I said, these are two legs sticking out, but not great quality, and unfortunately the way the shadow's lying on this, it's obscuring this detail down here, like the back foot and leg, which come round like that, and the back, okay? And that kind of comes up like that. So there we are. Not one of the clearest, not as good as some of the ones I've shown recently in Jezero Crater, but nonetheless, it looks like an animal anyway. Not very big, only about 4 inches in size. I think they had lots of figurines buried with them, a lot of these people on Mars. And I think they were probably mummifying cats and pets as well that may have been buried with them. I'm not saying this is mummified, but I'm pretty sure some of them are. So there's that long, elongated and pitted skull, okay? There he is. And when I remove all that, you can actually see it quite clearly. There we are. You can see the eye and the nose and the mouth detail. It's usually rows of teeth that give it away to me. And if you have rows of teeth with a nose, with a nostril, there's the nostril, the nose pointing down. And then if you have rows of teeth like we got here, even though they're very jagged and broken up and uneven, right? And then we got an eye, and what seems to be an ear or something there, right? That is a skull. It's not amazingly clear in the raw image, but these things rarely are. This is Sol 1099, heavy skull I called this. This is large, double the size of a human skull, I would say, and very robust, almost like a giant. I wouldn't say it is a giant, but the features just look like a rock when you see it here, okay? That just looks like a rock because everything's the same colour. That's why they use, partly why they use the orange filter. It's psychological. What it does, it basically makes you think everything's the same, and it's very difficult to pick out things that are different and that would normally stand out, probably because they're a bit of a different colour, okay? It's a way of camouflaging things, but it does have its uses. It does mean you can see into shadows, like here. You can see details in the shadows when you have an orange filter, and I think that's partly why they use it. But here it is, marked on there, and I've got the clip here. I've got two clips here of it with a close-up. This is that. Now, I found this years ago, 6 years ago, September 2015, and made a couple of videos on this, but they never really got viewed much for some reason. Probably because I used the word giant, and that tends to immediately push your video right to the bottom of the search list and the feed on YouTube. That's probably why. That's another word that's controlled by the media. Okay, but I would say this is about twice the size of a human skull, and you can actually see very strange nose bone here, very heavy brow ridges, and there's teeth detail in there. Now this is partly encrusted in mud, I think, here, so some of the detail is obscured by some of this stuff here, I think. But you can actually see, if you look carefully in there, you can see some teeth detail, okay? And the brow ridges are pretty unmistakable here, right? But a very strange nose, okay? And what seem to be nostrils here and here. There's a close-up of it, which is a bit brighter. Let's go back a bit, there we are. There's a close-up. Very strange, but this is Mars. We shouldn't expect everything to look like us. A lot of these things do, but a lot of them really do not. And a lot of the animals look a bit like ours, but not really. They look similar shapes, but they're very different sizes, and they have lots of different morphology compared to our dogs and cats and things like that. But they are similar. They are similar, and they probably share DNA with our creatures and us. A lot of these things that we see on Mars, we probably have similar roots and origins. If we go back far enough, we'll probably find there's a link between us at some point. I'm pretty sure of it. But there we are. You can see this in lighter detail here. This is the cover from my original video. This will link to it here, by the way. There's a link here. And I called it a statue head with a question mark because I wasn't really sure. I actually think this is a fossilized skull. It's not a statue head. If this was a statue, we wouldn't be seeing weird teeth detail kind of hidden in there like that, I don't think, in here. Okay, so it's damaged, it's partially encrusted in clay and mud by the looks of it, like a lot of these things are. A lot of the time you see skulls and things on these ridges, these long ridges, which are everywhere in Gale Crater, and there are often burials in these ridges and the little chambers, as I've shown before. They would stuff them in this little ridge line, and these eventually obviously become eroded, and then we see these eventually appearing after the erosion has eroded away the sand and stuff that was covering them up. And they would often have a little circle or square of stones around them, protecting them, and then covered up over the top as well, with a slab on top often, or just covered in sand and pebbles in a sort of formation around them. And I've shown that as well before, where I've shown them in little sort of what I would call like a little burial chamber, okay? Very primitive burial chamber. Okay, so there it is. But you wouldn't know that was a skull if I hadn't have shown it to you, probably, because it's an odd shape and it's got a very odd nose, and some of the, like I said, the chin details kind of partly obscured and damaged or broken off here as well. So very strange. So that's a find going right back, and there's loads and loads of other weird things in here as well, which I haven't even marked yet. Loads of strange little things and fragments and things that look a bit like little statues and carvings as well. In amongst all this stuff along these ridges, you always see, when you see a skull, you often see like a little carved head as well near it. So they were using heads as kind of grave markers as well as actually burying them along these ridges and mounds. As I've shown many times before, often you get 3 or 4 statues in a row, or carvings or figurines or something, and then you get a bunch of skulls in a row in a group as well, okay? So yet another burial mound type area or tomb area, I would say. These are all over Gale Crater. It's absolutely littered with them. It's like Valley of the Kings. And some of them are low status burials, like this one was probably. And I've also shown more high status ones in coffins and stuff like that as well, okay? Very heavy brow ridges. Really big. Big, robust, thick skull. Nose bone here, which is very strange. And nostrils here. So I think this would have been kind of put here when it was still fleshy and relatively fresh. And it's kind of mummified and solidified, like a lot of the things I've shown. These look like nostrils here. These oval-shaped black things. One here and one here. Just about make them out. And these are parts of the maxilla here. And if this wasn't obscuring it here, we would see a whole bunch of teeth showing, probably. But this may actually be mummified lip detail and flesh here. That's mummified and solidified and mineralized and semi-fossilized, I would say. So this is complex stuff going on here, but I think what we're seeing is the maxilla, and in the maxilla bone below the nose here, we're seeing what would have been gums. These would have been gums here, right? And the teeth would be lower down. And I think some of this stuff obscuring it here is actual mouth detail, perhaps. But it looks broken, the jaw looks broken, and it's a bit hard to work out what's going on. But there's some interesting parts sticking out here as well, which may be very large teeth or something that have shown through the actual flesh here as it's sort of shrunk and dried and desiccated. So this was mummified, and basically, as I've said before, I think a lot of these heads were actually removed and placed in small chambers, okay? Which is why they're still in relatively good condition, because they, up until fairly recently, were protected by a bunch of rocks around them and possibly over the top of them as well, which are now fallen away and slid down this slope, okay? And I've shown many, many examples of this. This is nothing new. This is just a very strange one, okay? So, as I said before, do come along and check out some of these previous videos I've done on Jezero Crater. There's a whole bunch, there's a whole actual playlist here about all the Jezero Crater stuff, from the Perseverance rover and the Ingenuity helicopter as well. So there's a whole bunch of videos here showing the structures in the ground, from above the ground, on the ground, and in the distance from on the ground, from the actual rover. But also, there's a whole bunch of videos I did going back to last year, some of them, showing the actual city and town and village structures in the ground and on the ground from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, like this one here. And there's also this one going back to last year. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. I will see you soon.